Kedung Pane prison at Semarang in central Java is considered one of the best run in the country. It certainly looks after its lawns and tropical gardens,
The rehabilitation program.
but don't be thrown by the serene scenery.
Quiet. Who's in this block?
Terrorist and corruption also.
The high risk block is here.
Yeah, high risk block. Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Okay.
Here in Kedung Pane's isolation block are members of the most lethal terror cells in Indonesia. And as we'll learn during our visit here, despite years in custody, they remain radical and prone to violence.
How long is Abdul Ghani here?
Abdul Ghani mixed the explosives used in the first Bali bombing.
Kita di Indonesia atau mungkin di Jawa ya, lebih khusus lagi. Sedangkan di Palestina atau di Afghanistan kita mendengar jeritan tangis dan lain sebagainya, pembantaian segala macam, kita pun akan naikkan gitu.
Anif Solhanudin volunteered to be a suicide bomber in the Jimbaran attacks, the second Bali.
Di luar saya melihat kondisi seperti itu, bisa jadi saya akan tertarik kembali. Kondisinya seperti itu ya, dalam artian dalam artian kita teman-teman saya ditindas seperti itu ya, tidak ada penyelesaian apa ya, istilahnya secara lebih santun lah seperti itu ya.
And Abdul Aziz found a hideout for one of the most notorious and prolific terrorists of all, Nurdin Muhammad Top.
Ketika ditanya, apakah kamu tahu itu buronan nomor 1 Indonesia? Saya bilang, dan sebagai seorang Muslim, saya wajib memberikan pertolongan itu. Dan itu ada hadisnya mengenai hal itu.
These men offer an extraordinary window into a flawed system, seemingly incapable of stopping the terrorism cycle. Nurdin Muhammad Top was killed in a police raid last September. The last attack he plotted revealed the fatal flaws in Indonesia's anti-terror campaign. The suicide bomber at the Marriott Hotel targeted a group of Indonesian and foreign businessmen. The regular breakfast get-together included former president of the Indonesia-Australia Business Council, Noke Kiroyan.
Basically, these executives from mining, oil and gas companies and those related to these industries. So there were 19 of us at a time.
Okay.
As the bomber closed in on his victims, he sent a mobile phone video stream back to his support team.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Well, we were just sitting around. Those of us who arrived early were just sitting on the couches around the walls, close to the wall.
Allahu Akbar.
We're talking, well, shop talk basically.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
I sensed rather than heard this bang reverberate across the room. And the blinding orange flash. And I saw my friends who were sitting at the other end of the table silhouetted against the wall. And that's what I remembered last.
The explosion killed 3 Australians, a New Zealander and an Indonesian waiter.
I was asked why. Why did you do that? You don't know me, and why did you try to kill me?
Among those brought to trial was a repeat offender, Rohmat Puji Prabowo. He was convicted in 2004 but released early because every year on Independence Day, well-behaved prisoners benefit from automatic reductions to their sentence.
Korban itu kan mereka punya alasan sendiri ya. Nah itu saya nggak pernah diskusi masalah itu. Yang penting dia itu ibadahnya baik, amalannya baik, kita bantu.
From terrorist foot soldiers to the top tier, recidivism is rife. The notorious Abu Bakar Bashir has once again been detained. He was jailed over the first Bali bombings, then had his conviction quashed, but he's also served time after attacks on Christian churches and a luxury hotel. Indonesia's police now accuse Bashir of establishing a new terror cell discovered at a training camp in Aceh in February. Since then, they've found that at least 12 other cell members had already been jailed for terrorism. The revelation worries Tito Karnavian, the head of Indonesia's counter-terrorism unit.
What the police is doing today is just cutting the tip of the iceberg. We need to find out why this guy is going back to the network. There must be a problem. There must be a weakness.
It's a weakness deep within Indonesia's prison system. Over the past 10 years, the Indonesian police have targeted terror networks stretching from Afghanistan to the southern Philippines into the heart of Indonesia. They've arrested around 500 men and most have been locked behind bars. The trouble is, so far, around 24 have emerged from jail only to go straight back into active terror cells. Kedung Pane prison offers the usual array of workshops to keep inmates busy and give them basic skills for life on the outside.
I can change my life.
What this prison does not offer is a serious mainstream program aimed at reforming the hardliners.
Dari dulu saya sudah membenci, kepolisian itu sudah benci dari mulai kasus banyak peledakan penanganan terhadap terorisme, dari kabar yang saya dengar itu saya sudah membenci, mulai dari situ dulu sudah terbentuk dalam diri saya membenci aparat seperti itu.
Anif Solhanudin was a trusted member of the cell responsible for the second Bali bombings. To him, mass murder and suicide were honourable goals.
Berangkat dari itu, berangkat dari rasa empati kita terhadap teman-teman kita ya, yang ya penanganan ya penyiksaan, terus penangkapan, penembakan, itu kan terjadi ya setelah banyak bom juga. Dan kedua, melihat keutamaan syahid ini, seperti terbebas dari siksa kubur, masuk surga kan seperti itu, dan lain sebagainya, kan mendapatkan.
In the end, others were sent on the deadly assignment. One of Anif's cohorts walked into a beachside cafe at Jimbaran, south of Kuta, and blew himself up. In all that day, 20 victims died in a series of coordinated attacks. While Anif Solhanudin claims he knew no details of the plot, he still talks like an active member of a terror cell.
Bukan lagi targetnya adalah, oh ini kebencian mereka pernah. Tidak, tapi sasarannya lebih dekat lagi, akhirnya begitu. Ini juga musuh kan begitu, hanya begitu seperti itu. Maka iya sasarannya instansi-instansi yang memerangi kita, memerangi ikhwan-ikhwan itu, polisian.
Fellow Kedung Pane inmate Abdul Ghani was jailed for life for his role in the first Bali attack. His jihadist ways were forged as a young man when he went to Afghanistan to fight the Soviets.
Dibombardir segala macam tanpa dia tidak tahu kesalahannya apa kan gitu. Nah dari situ kadang-kadang kita mulai bagaimana saya bisa membantu mereka kan gitu. Bukan cuma simpati aja, cuma bagaimana kita mewujudkan itu.
Like many extremists, Abdul Ghani claims to approve of violence only in an active war zone. Still, when it comes to Bali, his only real regret is that the cell leaders didn't kill American officials.
Sebagai manusiawi kadang kita juga sedih kan gitu. Oh ternyata begini gitu. Kemarin yang saya bantu ternyata kok puncaknya begini kan gitu. Di samping itu kan korbannya menurut berita juga ada yang memang bukan sebagai yang saya inginkan, yang jelaskan gitu.
Last week, the prison authorities recommended Abdul Ghani's sentence be cut down to 20 years. That would make him eligible for further dramatic reductions. It's a reward for good behaviour, and yet, alarmingly, he still expresses admiration for the men who planned the attack.
Sedangkan beristihad itu memang kadang bisa betul, kadang bisa salah. Sehingga kami dalam hal itu ya kita kembalikan kepada Allah, yaitu penilaiannya gimana terserah kepada Allah. Sedangkan saya sendiri berpikirnya ya, dia umpama salah pun masih dapat pahala kan gitu. Itu lebih baik daripada orang yang diam kan gitu.
Extremist ideology continues to fester inside this prison. And, incredibly, the convicted terrorists are held up as spiritual leaders by the prison authorities. This Friday prayer is led by Sawad, another lifer the authorities say should have his sentence cut to 20 years. He claims he packed the explosives for the first Bali attacks because he had no one but the terror network to support him. The subject of his sermon is remorse. But he says if he had his time over, he'd do the same again.
Kalau dipaksakan, dikondisikan, kita dikondisikan dalam kondisi kita lapar, dalam kondisi kita perlu, tentu kita akan berpikir, udahlah kita pakai dulu. Mudah-mudahan kalau mungkin kita lari atau selamat melarikan diri kalau sudah penting keluar dari masalah ini. Belum mikir kita masalah belum besar, tapi masalah yang dihadapi ini.
The jails bring unrepentant hardliners together with much less experienced recruits. Abdulaziz, who played a relatively minor role in the network, is one who's made dangerous new friends.
Tapi tatkala kita dalam penjara sendiri gitu, kalau kita tidak ada teman yang mengerti kita, yang memahami kita, terus kita akan minta tolong kepada siapa? Itu yang paling penting buat kami. Tidak ada lebih dari itu. Karena setan itu sangat penting di penjara ini. Ikatan emosional gitu ya. Ya. Padahal ya, saya dengan Pak Abdul Ghani itu mengenal di dalamnya. Di luar saya tidak mengenal Pak Abdul Ghani, tidak mengenal Sawad, tidak mengenal Anif, tidak mengenal Dwi Widiarto. Kami akrab dalam penjara ini.
The risk number one is that the process of indoctrination, recruitment, will be continued in prison, and it is quite ironic because out of prison, this network supposed to be the clandestine network, yeah. But in the prison, they can do it freely.
The police have had limited success turning prisoners and using them as valuable informants. But they now argue Indonesia desperately needs a comprehensive de-radicalisation program.
We need to put a mechanism, appropriate system in which it can rehabilitate or de-radicalize the mindset of these people and to prevent them from going back into the network.
I think it is extremely important for us to have de-radicalization program inside the prisons and after the prisons, because those people are driven by ideology. You cannot kill that ideology, simply lock them in jail.
Nur Huda Ismail is uniquely placed to understand the challenge posed by violent extremists, because as a young man, he was one of them.
I used to believe that this Indonesian government is secular and I have to change them radically, even using the violence.
The young radical was raised in the Ngruki school, the cradle of Indonesia's modern terrorist network, run by none other than the same Abu Bakar Bashir, who's once again in police custody.
I had a very creepy background in the past. I shared room with one of the Bali bombers when I was 12, and the founder of the school, also the founder of the terrorist organization called Jamaah Islamiyah.
When the Bali bombers struck in 2002, Nur Huda Ismail was horrified to learn his old friend Mubarak helped plan the attack.
Police distributed a leaflet showing a picture of him. I'm like, oh my God, he was my roommate. And I have that personal question, what kind of trajectory, what are the journeys to make these individuals to become a terrorist?
So Nur Huda Ismail took it upon himself to do something. He devised a modest pilot program and took it to the prison authorities. It's now been trialled at Kedong Pane.
There is a dying need for us to have a social intervention here by providing different alternatives, different views, different type of interaction among themselves.
The program aims at conflict resolution, not de-radicalisation. All of the serious offenders in the prison are forced to attend, and hopes for the terror convicts are limited.
I'm sure jail won't change their ideology completely, but gradually we can choose their level of threat by not put into practice their violent ideology. So simply disengagement might be the most realistic way. What I have been doing is very sporadic, very small, very tiny, and I need the support.
These may look like schoolyard games, but Nur Huda Ismail's program is about building a regard for human life. And at least one inmate is showing signs of being tempered.
Maka saya menjadi berpikir think twice, 2 kali untuk menjudge seorang. Itu pun akhirnya saya dapatkan juga dalam materi manajemen konflik ini, dan bahwasanya everybody is different. Setiap orang itu berbeda, dan kita tidak bisa memaksakan kehendak kita kepada orang itu.
Nur Huda Ismail's taking his campaign beyond the prison walls. He's hoping his new book, My Friend the Terrorist, about the Bali bomber Mubarak, will change minds across the country. Too many Indonesians, he says, tolerate violent extremism.
That is completely morally wrong, not to say someone who kills innocent civilian as a bad guy. He is a bad guy. We have to shout it loud. We have to grab the microphone and dictate the discourse.
He's also produced a film, including never-before-seen footage of the other terrorists who've since been executed.
Jika setetes darah umat Islam di belahan timur tertumpah setetes saja, maka wajib umat Islam sampai bagian barat membela setetes darah itu. Jadi nggak beda di Afghanistan, nggak beda Islam di Kashmir atau di Indonesia sama.
I think the most important is acknowledging the problems. Part of us, Muslims, who actually committed such bombing. Yes, part of us did it, and this is Muslim problems, and we as a Muslim must tackle this issue carefully. Don't try to clean your hand and as if nothing happened.
Convicted terrorists who are eventually released are cast into a void. There's no employment program and no support to keep them on the straight and narrow. Here again, Nur Huda Ismail's trying to do his bit, putting a few to work at this fish farm.
The community constantly stigmatizes them as a terrorist, so they don't have enough room to prove themselves that they are not terrorists.
Hari Setia Rahmadi is another graduate of the jihad in Afghanistan and the Philippines, and was also convicted for sheltering kingpin Nordin Muhammad Top.
Dia menceritakan bagaimana kondisi umat Islam di situ, jadi begitu terjajahnya, jadi pembunuhan besar-besaran seperti itu ya. Jadi sehingga bagi orang yang mendengarkan pun dia akan tergerak hatinya, seperti itu. Satu.
At the fish farm, this ex-con has found a new sense of purpose.
First, I have a dream. Saya ingin punya rumah, saya ingin punya mobil, saya ingin punya everything. So, it must be pay. Oleh karena itu, saya harus bekerja, mengaplikasikan keterampilan kita yang bisa kita manfaatkan untuk masyarakat umum.
But not all those Nur Huda Ismail is helping changed their lives for the better. Sometimes the pull of old friends and their old ways proves too great. Another former inmate has gone missing, and Nur Huda Ismail fears the worst.
The group trying to get him all the time to join, and then he doesn't want to continue his work, look after the fish pond, and there are strong possibility now he's now close to the group again.
The jury is still out on whether extremists can really ever be de-radicalised.
I understand that my program has a lot of weaknesses, and there are no silver bullet to tame those terrorists easily. We need patience, we need hard work, and we need a systematic effort to do that.
Abdulaziz is the next due for parole. A date is yet to be set. A couple of hours down the road, Aziz's parents are making plans for his return. They're so desperate to make sure he stays on the right track, they're thinking of selling the family home to set him up in a small business.
Saya yakin setelah dia kembali tahu betul dia bahwa dia itu harus membesarkan anaknya. Dan insya Allah saya, ya angel ya, saya urusan itu kan cuma dari Allah ya. Tapi saya menjamin bahwa kalau dia datang insya Allah dia tidak akan berbuat lagi. Saya insya Allah setelah keadaan begini kan saya terus mengawasi terus. Sebelumnya itu kan saya tidak.
But it may be some time before Aziz's parents are reunited with their son. Spooked by evidence that so many former inmates go back to terrorism, the authorities have now frozen all parole. Abdulaziz is clearly resentful.
Jadi akhirnya apa? Apakah kita terus kemudian memaafkan Densus? Dia sudah memukul kami, memenjarakan kami, ya, menyiksa kami dengan begitu luar biasa, ya, sesuai dengan kesalahan kami. Kemudian di akhir mereka malah mencoreng itu. Kalau mereka berpikir itu sebuah pembinaan, itu justru keliru. Semakin lama kita di sini, semakin kita jauh dengan keluarga, semakin bara jihad itu akan semakin besar.
As long as we are not able to contain the spread of the ideology and not able to rehab these people, prevent them from going back to the network, then they are radical, they are violence prone. It is just a matter of time they are committing attack.